Well, my account verification is having a problem at the moment, so I can't upload videos that are longer than 15 minutes. So I've had to take part 3 and break it into 2 bits. So this is part 3 shortened version, and there will be a part 4 as well. Right, Theodore Roosevelt, cousin of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the youngest president at inauguration. He was 42 years old. He is one of the faces carved on Mount Rushmore. He was very much a naturalist in that he enjoyed the outdoors. He created many of the United States monuments, forests, public parks, etc. During his presidency, they began the construction of the Panama Canal. He created the Great White Fleet. He painted the American Navy ships white, sent them on a tour around the world, and gave them the motto, "Speak softly but carry a big stick." He was a Rough Rider during the Spanish-American War. He was the first president to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He was once shot while he was giving a speech. He continued to give that 90-minute speech with a bullet lodged in his chest. Luckily, the bullet had been deflected somewhat by his glasses case. He was the first American to have a brown belt in judo. Something a little bit weird, he had a lock of Abraham Lincoln's hair woven into a ring that he wore at his inauguration. And yes, the teddy bear was named after Theodore Roosevelt. One interesting thing about him is that his first wife and his mother both died on the same Valentine's Day. Here we have William Howard Taft, the only man to go on and be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court after being president. He unfortunately resided during the split, during the re-election campaign, a split in the Republican Party. Teddy formed the Bull Moose Party, and that split the Republican vote. And as a result, the Democratic candidate Woodrow Wilson won the election. Mr. Taft was one of the largest in physical size presidents we've ever had. He once got stuck in the presidential bathtub, and that took several Secret Service agents to get him out. As a result, they had an extra large bathtub installed in the White House. It's reported that it will hold 4 men. This is Woodrow Wilson. Now, in part 1, you realize that Thomas Jefferson, because of his terrible stutter, issued a written State of the Union address to Congress. Now, up to Woodrow Wilson, that had been written. Now, Woodrow Wilson reinstated giving the oral State of the Union address, which is continued today. Wilson tried to maintain the United States neutrality during World War I, but he realized they were going to have to get involved in order to protect world democracy. He was responsible for introducing the draft, the selective service, to draft people into the United States military. He was very influential in forming the League of Nations, which was a forerunner to the United Nations. He was the second president to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And look in your wallets and purses, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a $100,000 bill, Woodrow Wilson's picture's on it. It was used mainly for trading between banks and large financial institutions, so you probably don't have one. If you do, you're a rich person. Here is William Gamaliel Harding, the third president to die in office. He entered the office of president with a reasonable reputation, but it quickly got tainted as he was involved in several scandalous affairs. The first one being that he was discovered to have a love child, which that does not go down well in the United States. He also was involved in the Teapot Dome affair, where oil companies were given rights to drill for oil in various states, but they had not gone through the congressional bidding process. So Mr. Harding and maybe some of his friends pocketed a few extra bucks that way. Here we have Calvin Coolidge. He was a quiet president in terms of what he accomplished, but he accomplished what he set out to do. Nothing very spectacular. He took a hands-off approach to business legislation, so the laissez-faire concept of business administration. He restored the faith in the office of the President of the United States after the Harding debacle. He liked to press all the call buttons for the presidential staff to see which members of the staff were still available, working, or maybe had slipped off into the land of Nod. One unusual thing about Mr. Coolidge, he spread Vaseline on his hair because he thought it warded off illness. Maybe it does. Here we have Herbert Hoover. No, the vacuum cleaner was not named after him, but the Hoover Dam, which was constructed during his presidency, was named after him. He was a devout Quaker, and he very strongly supported prohibition, no alcohol during his presidency. He struggled, however, with economic issues that led to the Great Depression. As a tradition, as I said, many of the presidents and president's family kept some sort of a pet in the White House. Mr. Hoover's son kept two pet alligators in the White House. This is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the fourth president to die in office, the only president to serve more than 2 terms, because remember, it's not law now. He could go on as long as he could be elected serving. He created the New Deal legislation to repair the United States economy and make a comeback from depression. And they were successful programs. They did reestablish a strong United States economy. He approved development of the atomic bomb. He oversaw the creation of the United Nations and what was called Bretton Woods, which eventually turned into the International Monetary Fund. His parents were 6 cousins. He was a 5th cousin to Teddy. His wife Eleanor was a 5th cousin once removed. The Roosevelts had a very tight-knit family. He had an affair with a lady by the name of Lucy Mercer, and that destroyed his relationship with Eleanor. Eleanor took it and went on to get involved in many domestic opportunities in the United States, and was considered to be a very fine first lady. He did have a failed assassination attempt during his presidency. He suffered from polio from a very early age, and he was fitted with leg braces. As a result, when he walked, he had to walk with a kind of a waddling affair. He kept a Secret Service agent by his side when he did walk, which minimized the amount of waddle that he did demonstrate, but he did not want the world to think the United States had a disabled president. He did most of his interviews in a seated position or from the back of his car. He liked to do interviews from the back of his car. He went down to southern Georgia, a place called Warm Springs, which is where he went for his rest and rehabilitation from time to time, because there were warm springs on the estate. He was in Warm Springs when he died of a cerebral hemorrhage. Lucy Mercer was at his side when he died, not Eleanor. He created the March of Dimes charity, which sought and eventually found a cure for polio. And due to his ill health, the inauguration for his 4th presidency was moved to the 20th of January. Previous to this, all the inaugurations had been done on the 4th of March. Now all the inaugurations are done on the 20th of January, thanks to Mr. Roosevelt's illness. He was a skinny dipper. Harry S. Truman. The S does not stand for anything. His parents couldn't decide what to name him, so they just left it as an S. Germany surrendered on his 61st birthday a few weeks after he took office. He implemented the Marshall Plan to aid Western Europe in rebuilding after the Second World War. And the Truman Doctrine was created to create NATO to help the Western Europe defend against communist expansion and invasions. America was moving from an isolationist to an international foreign policy under Mr. Truman. He authorized the use of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He exercised more presidential vetoes than any other president to date. 180 vetoes he issued, 12 of which were overridden by Congress. He is ranked in the top 10 of the presidents of the United States. And this is a lovely quote that he had about himself. My choices in life were either to be a piano player in a whorehouse or a politician. And to tell the truth, there's hardly any difference.